Box office top 10, before we get there, Amelia Perez is not in our chart at all. However, Thomas Andrew Clifford on our YouTube channel says, Mexican directors are begging to tell stories about their country that aren't about narcos. And yet every American, British, French, Canadian director is so committed to only telling stories about Mexico that border on the cartoonishly stereotypical. I have lived as a British man in Mexico for the better part of a decade, and this country deserves so much better than the non-stop cartel-based stories from people who have clearly never set foot in the country. Do I have to start calling it Mexploitation films at this point, which is very good. I haven't seen that.
Very good.
Amelia Perez not being in the chart, what's that about?
Well, I presume it's because it's Netflix, and we've talked about this before, that Netflix have a thing about not issuing box office figures. So I think it comes to Netflix on the 18th of November. And so I suspect, therefore, that it's not in the charts because it hasn't taken money. It's not in the charts because we haven't been told the box office figures, which is, seems daft to me, but there you go.
Stuff that we do know about in the top 10. Number 15 in the UK, 41 in America.
Yeah, the brothers Edgars, but not that one. I thought it was pretty decent. I mean, he's got a great central performance by Catherine Hunter, who just dominates the screen. I did say at the time that I think, when we reviewed it last week, that I think it's one of the films that will be that people will bump into late night and go, "Oh, this is really interesting." But I didn't think it ever had the power to to be a particular hit on its opening. So number 15, but it's a decent, intelligent chiller.
Number 11, A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 40th anniversary reissue. What's to say? Number 10 here, 12 in the States, Joker, Folie à Deux. Well, still hanging on.
Yeah, I'm still a big fan of it, and actually, as I said, both you and I think it's better than the first one. And I've now met a few people who agree with us, but it's amazing how divisive it's proved to be.
The Substance is at number 9, number 11 in America.
I mean, arguably the most exciting film of the year. I mean, just full-on proper filmmaking. I think that Coralie Farjad did a brilliant job. I think it's one of Demi Moore's most remarkable performances. I think Margaret Qualley is great. And I have spoken to so many people who have come out of it and just gone, wow. Simon, it will be available for you to watch at home in the not-too-distant future.
Yes. Okay.
I trust that you will do so.
No. The Room Next Door is at number 8.
Yes.
In the UK, it hasn't charted. In America, it's a new entry. So a couple of emails on this. Someone who appears to be called Oxentierner69. Can I just call you Oxen? All right, Oxen, thanks very much. The translation is bad, full of direct translations like, I don't want to abandon the party, which is a euphemism in Spanish for I don't want to die. And I don't want to complicate your life. Again, Spanish for what I don't want to get you into trouble. And in general, the dialogue is wordy and stilted and almost never colloquial. The way of coming up with English language scripts without hiring a writer or giving a credit is all the rage in Spain. Anna Watson in Clapham. Given the subject matter, I went prepared with tissues in my pockets, expecting to be a weeping mess most of the way through. I think with any other director, those actors could have produced tear-jerking performances. I realize now this is typical with Almodovar, that even deeply emotional lines are delivered in a rather soap operatic style. The slightly slow editing adds to the effect with odd pauses. It's an interesting film, worth seeing, but not at all the weep fest you might imagine. In fact, there were quite a lot of laughs, often stemming from the abruptness of the delivery or the incongruity of the blank tone and dark subject matter. Perhaps that will encourage more people to go when it's on general release. That's The Room Next Door, number 8.
Yeah, I mean, as I said when we reviewed it last week, I think I expected to be more emotionally involved. But of course, it being an Almodovar film, it has that kind of theatrical archness to it. I mean, I think more so than in his best work, and I don't think this is his best work by any means. I love those actors. I think they're both absolutely brilliant. But they did feel something, it felt stagey, it felt performative. As far as the laughs are concerned, I don't think that's a negative at all, because I think it's, although it is a film, it's about confronting death, it is a very lively confrontation with it. But I stand by what I said last week, which was that most of the film plays out in this very weirdly constructed building, which is a series of boxes that are connected to each other, but not quite connected to each other. And to me, that's what the film felt like, particularly in its final act, in which it sort of turns into a police procedural. But, I've never seen an Almodovar film that I thought was a waste of time. So I think the performances are good, and I like the design, but I don't think it has the emotional heft that one would expect it to have, considering the subject matter.
Number 7 in the UK, 6 in the States, Terrifier 3.
It's done very well and has done exactly what it set out to do, and I'm no fan of it. And I know there are going to be more Terrifier movies because we now have an emerging sort of Terrifier universe. Not for me at all, but it does do exactly what it sets out to do in a very unpleasant way.
Number 6 is Beetlejuice.
Better than everyone could have expected. I know some people have been a bit sniffy about it, but I think it's a very decent film.
The Apprentice at number 5.
There was a thing...
Interesting, in number 17 in the States. So.
Somebody said, I can't remember who it was, and listeners will write in, I love political satire, particularly all the political satire in the early 1930s that so brilliantly stopped the rise of Hitler. The thing with The Apprentice is that the story that it tells is one of the creation of a monster. Because of where we are, I can understand people not wanting to see it because, you know, we're in a very, very strange period in history. I like the film, and I think that all the complaints from the Trump camp that it's, you know, he just screams lies at everything, doesn't he? So, but I thought it was pretty decent. But it doesn't surprise me that some people have just said, I can't go and spend 2 hours in the company of Donald Trump.
Yeah. By the way, I have mentioned this to you before, but it might be worth mentioning in the last few days before that thing happens. If you are still on Twitter, Simon Rosenberg is a Democratic sort of strategist, and he uses social media an awful lot. And if you want the most optimistic take that you could find in the next few days, he's the guy to hunt out because he's very good and he kind of knows his stuff. He's one of the people who spotted that there wasn't a red wave 2 years ago, so he has some merits behind his name. Number 4 here, number 10 in the States is Transformers 1,
which I enjoyed. I thought it was a decent Transformers movie, and remembered that this is a kid's toy and made a film that kids of all ages can enjoy.
Smile 2 is at 3.
Terrific central performance, the kind of thing that doesn't get Oscar nominated because that doesn't happen with horror movies. But good to see that it's done well. You know, it's had a really popular opening, and I really enjoyed it. Perfect Friday night popcorn movie.
Our number 2 film is The Wild Robot. It's number 3 in America. Chris Wright says, myself and my family recently had a bad run of luck. Firstly, I was off from work with flu. Then my dad was hospitalized with a fall. The day after we brought him out, my mother was rushed in with severe abdominal pains. This all during my week of annual leave. One day after visiting her, I checked the films at my wonderful local Curzon and found a perfectly timed screening of The Wild Robot. I really needed an escape from a bad week. From the very start, I was absolutely enchanted. It looked absolutely beautiful. Fortunately, it was a very polite cinema. No noise. I was totally transported. I was really moved by the film, choked up at multiple times, and left the screening feeling almost cured. It hammered home a fact that I already knew. Film, when it's truly great, can absorb you in and for a few hours take you away from the troubles in life. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting just how, we were talking about how the Almodovar wasn't reaching people emotionally. The Wild Robot absolutely does reach people emotionally. And in the same way as films like, I suppose Big Hero 6 to some extent, but actually, Silent Running and WALL-E, which are the two things that I keep studying, and of course The Iron Giant, those stories, when told well, really do get you in the feels. And Wild Robot, it's a joy to look at. I mean, it is beautifully designed, but it's also very, very, it tugs at your heartstrings in a way which is very well done. And I haven't yet met anyone who's seen it who hasn't teared up.
Number 1 here, number 1 in the States, Venom, The Last Dance, Mr. Beast, 85. Would like to say this. I saw it this Friday, left me stone cold. The humor appears aimed at children, pitched at about the same level as a head coming out of a toilet, singing skibbity bop pop, notwithstanding a sprinkling of adult themes and some swear words. On the whole, I think the film is best summed up as a live-action cartoon in which some stuff happens. Okay, a less than enthusiastic review, but it's finding big audiences here and in the States. Venom is number 1.
It is. I mean, it'll drop like a stone, I suspect, in the next couple of weeks. But the franchise has proved very successful. I mean, I've never really understood it. I thought the second one was decent. I thought this was a car crash. I like Kelly Marcel very much as a filmmaker, and I'm very glad that the film has done well. There is something so weird about making, a movie which has got basically 15 certificate material in it, but has that the email quite rightly says the humor of, aimed at an 11-year-old. And I think that's the thing which I don't really get about Venom is who is it for? But it's a big, wide blockbuster opening. It'll go to number one for 1 week. It won't be at number one next week. And it's now closed the loop, and it has done financially very well, which is more than can be said of Joker Folie à Deux. Although, obviously, if you put those two films next to each other and say, which one do you want more of? The studios will go for Venom because it's done better financially, which is such an upside down world.